This creep is the latest in a long line of attempted assassination attempts upon President Trump, as well as, broadly speaking, violence upon conservative influencers, as well as ICE agents. The left, of course, is waging, in their minds, a justified violence campaign against those in which they deem as the enemies of the state or democracy or what have you. Very reminiscent of pre-Civil War America with John Brown's raid and radical abolitionism. If you're familiar with that period of American history, you would know that while abolitionism was a good movement that sought for great ends, there were, of course, radicals who decided to go and butcher those who they felt like were obstacles to abolition as a movement. Now, I don't believe that the left is fighting for something as noble as abolition of slaves. I actually believe that leftism as a system of thought which advocates for mass government overreach is just trying to create people into slaves. However, we need to understand the mind of leftism. And we're going to do so today looking here at this individual and his manifesto. So, as you guys saw over the weekend, of course, this guy who is the gunman, Cole Allen, he is accused of trying to assassinate President Trump. So accused, White House correspondent, dinner gunman Cole Allen sent a chilling anti-President Trump manifesto to his family just before opening fire, calling himself the friendly federal assassin, interesting name, and revealing he was hell-bent on killing Trump administration officials, the Post has learned. Allen wrote that his, quote, targets were administration officials, not including FBI Director Kash Patel, which is somewhat interesting. We'll get into at least some of my theories about why that might be the case. Prioritized from the highest ranking to the lowest. So meaning President Trump, of course, is going to be the number one target. The unhinged missive went out about 10 minutes before the shooting Saturday night, two U.S. officials said. This is a quotation now, quote, "I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, a rapist, and a traitor to coat my hands with his crimes." Interesting language there. Wrote, referring to the president. He continues to say, "In order to minimize casualties, I will also be using buckshot rather than slugs." And then he also says down here, "I would still go through most everyone here to get the targets if they were absolutely necessary, on the basis that most people chose to attend the speech by a pedophile, rapist, and a traitor, and thus are complicit. But I really hope that it doesn't come to that." Of course, is the security photos and imagery of what took place. Many of you guys have seen this. This has kind of been termed as Sonic the Hedgehog. Look how quick this guy runs. Runs across there, bullets firing, of course. Absolutely nuts. I mean, just again, looking here at the beginning of this video. Golly, just look how fast he just moves through there. Absolutely crazy. We're going to dissect part of this manifesto. I'm not going to read this entire manifesto in full. If you guys are interested, of course, you guys can find it online. It's pretty accessible now. But I wanted to look at some interesting portions. Why? Because I believe that with the situation in which we're in right now as a country, we need to understand the mind of leftism as a system of thought itself, as well as, by understanding its principles, be able to understand where we're going in the future. You know, Nick Shirley came out, I believe it was yesterday, and talked about how he has had multiple assassination threats upon his own life, and especially in his proximity, it's really ridiculous because he's just out there trying to expose fraud as an independent journalist. But also on top of that, the fact that when you think about it, you know, he talked about how some of these days in which people are predicting he's going to die or threatening that he's going to die are coming up. And so people are clear with their intentions. We need to be able to predict what is going to be in the future when it comes to understanding their ideology. So he says this, and this is reported here by Benny Johnson. So thank you, Benny, for posting this quote. "Hello, everybody. This is the shooter speaking. So I may have given a lot of people a surprise today. Let me start off by apologizing to everyone who I trust and I abused. I apologize to my parents for saying that I had an interview without specifying it was for Most Wanted." He continues and he says, "I apologize to my colleagues and students for saying that I had a personal emergency. By the time everyone reads this, I probably most certainly do need to go to the ER, but can hardly call off not a self-inflicted status." One thing that's interesting about this, just real quick, is again, notice the, if you will, kind of common job that this guy works. He's a teacher, for crying out loud. And so what radicalizes just a teacher, a Caltech grad, from going from a position of being an instructor of pupils to attempted being a terrorist? Absolutely nuts. He continues and he says, here, I apologize to all the people I traveled with, yada, yada, yada. I apologize to everyone who was abused or murdered before this, to all those who suffered before I was able to attempt this, and to as many who still suffer regardless of my success or failure. I don't expect forgiveness, but if I could have seen it any other way to get this close, I would have taken it. Again, my sincere apologies. On to why I did this. Now, this is going to be important for us for at least two reasons off the top of my head. On one hand, what this will be able to tell us is not only the motives for why this person is doing this, and therefore from that we can extrapolate the mind of leftism as a system, but also the fact that this is really concrete evidence. This is an open confession, an open manifesto telling us what he was planning to do. And so therefore, we can easily understand from this that this is in fact hard evidence. This is something that we need to recognize as a right-wing movement, that individuals who openly admit that they're trying to kill the president probably do intend to kill the president. Again, while conspiracy theories is out there, we have to understand that there's such a thing as due process, and in the process of due process, understanding what hard evidence is versus circumstantial is crucial, and this is hard evidence. So what does this guy say? He says this. So on to why I did this. So I'm a citizen of the United States of America. My representatives do reflects on me. And I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, a rapist, and a traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. Well, to be completely honest, I was no longer willing for a long time ago, but this is the first real opportunity I have done something about it. So notice, they're calling him a pedophile, a rapist, and a traitor. Trump has been credibly, multiple times, proven to not have engaged in pedophilia or rape. And at the same time, again, traitor is something that's interesting. I have a hard time believing that leftists have undying loyalty to the United States of America. Of course, while President Trump is not perfect, and there have been, I would argue, many actions that he has taken that has exceeded his expressly limited powers as enumerated by the American Constitution, it's unfortunately nothing new, because this is something that both sides have done for a long time. So, in the mind of a leftist, he sees him as a pedophile, rapist, as a traitor, etc., etc. And this is his first real opportunity to do something about it in his mind. He says, while I am discussing this, I'll also go over my expected rules of engagement. Probably a terrible format, but I'm not military, so too bad. So, this is what he states, and this is one of the clearest lines we have. Administration officials, not including Mr. Patel, are targets, prioritized from the highest ranking to the lowest. So here we have this clear reality. Trump is the main target. J.D. Vance is going to be a main target. Speaker Johnson is going to be a main target by virtue of being not necessarily involved with the administration, but being a runner-up to the presidency of the United States. The administration's cabinet, but with the exception of Mr. Patel. I wonder why. I've seen people theorize, and I think that there might be something to it, that because this guy is a leftist, maybe his thought is, well, this guy's a minority, and so I can't engage in attacking him. Who knows what the case may be, but I do think that there might be at least a hint of credibility to that particular theory. Secret Service, they are targets only if necessary and to be incapacitated non-lethally if possible, aka I hope they are wearing body armor, because center mass with shotgun messes up people who aren't. Thank goodness and thank the Lord Jesus Christ that the one officer that was shot was not hurt by this. Hotel security or not, if all possible. Same with Capitol Police, National Guard, hotel employees, etc. Guests, not targets at all. In order to minimize casualties, I will also be using buckshot rather than slugs, less penetration through walls. I would go still through most everyone here to get the targets if it were absolutely necessary, on the basis that most people chose to attend a speech by a pedophile, rapist, and traitor, and thus are complicit. But I really hope it doesn't come to that. So, in other words, he's willing to go and to kill the entire room if absolutely necessary to get to President Trump and to slay him. Now, this is where it's interesting to me as a Christian, as someone who is very theologically inclined. He makes various theological arguments, actually, for why he's doing this. So he gives rebuttals to objections. So that's kind of interesting. Objection 1, a Christian should turn the other cheek. Rebuttal. Turning the other cheek is for when you are yourself oppressed. I am not the person raped in a detention camp. Nonsense. I am not the fisherman executed without trial. Nonsense again. I am not a school kid blown up or a child starved or a teenage girl abused by the many criminals in this administration. Excuse me. Okay. So his argument is, okay, well, turn the other cheek applies for you, but not for if you're seeing, evils take place. The question is that are some of these things, in fact, actually as this person portrays them? And this is what I find really disturbing. America, based off of whether you're a right-wing person or left-wing person, seemingly has not only two sets of media, but two sets of facts and two sets of reality. We're living in opposite reality worlds. And so we're seeing this individual, as an example, bring up the ICE situations a couple months back, where you saw the fishermen, quote unquote, executed without trial and things along that nature. The incident with the woman trying to run over the ICE officer, the other teacher that was killed by another ICE officer about a week after that point. These situations end up being extremely messy. And yet this individual is going to blame the entire administration. But what's sad about this, of course, is that this has been debunked multiple times. We see in the case of both individuals when it came to ICE that ICE was engaged in, self-defense and things along that nature. But of course, this individual is not going to see it that way from his own perspective. He continues, and he says, turning the other cheek is when someone else is oppressed is not Christian behavior. It is completely the oppressor's crime. So that's his justification for it. Because this is not me, but it's someone else, I can engage in some type of lethal action against this. Objection 2, it is not convenient time to do this. Rebuttal, I need whosoever thinks this way to take a couple minutes and realize that the world isn't about them. Do you think that when I see someone being raped or murdered or abused, I walk on by because it would be inconvenient for people who aren't the victim? This is the biggest timing and chance of success I could come up with. Now, this line I think is really interesting because there was a lot of scuttlebutt and a lot of talk about the reality that this place was not really secure, and that this place was also publicized months in advance, the fact that the Trump administration was going to be hosting this particular White House Correspondents' Dinner here. And so this individual thinks that it's absolutely necessary for them to engage in it. And he thinks, okay, well, he'll liken the situation of complex geopolitics to, well, if someone is just being abused on the street, you should do something about it. Well, I'm going to do the exact same. Again, very, very faulty logic when it comes to it. And then, of course, he continues and he gives, as you guys can see, objection number 3 and 4. You didn't get them all. Got to start somewhere. Just the flippancy is insane. Objection 4, and this is one reason why I think the Patel theory about him being an Indian might be the truth. As a half black, half white person, you shouldn't be the one doing this. I don't see anyone else picking up the slack. Objection 5, yield unto Caesar what is Caesar's. The United States of America are ruled by the law. He's true about that. Not by any one or several people. Insofar as the representatives and judges do not follow the law, no one is required to yield to them anything so unlawfully ordered. I would also like to extend my appreciation to the great many people, since I will not be likely able to talk without them again unless the Secret Service is astoundingly incompetent. So, pretty nuts. And then basically what he does here, he just goes through the list of thanking people for different actions that he goes through. The different family, friends, colleagues, and things along that nature. Not really of any interest. And then he goes down here in the PS and he goes to, now that all the sappy stuff is done, what the hell is the Secret Service doing? Sorry, I'm going to rant a bit here and drop the formal tone. Like I expressed, security cameras have every been, buggled hotel rooms, armed agents every 10 feet, metal detectors out the wazoo. What I got, who knows? Maybe they're pranking me. It's nothing. And then, of course, he says, no security, not in transport, not in the hotel, not in the event. And then he goes on and he talks more about the fact that you see, as you can see here, the one thing I immediately noticed walking to the hotel is the sense of arrogance. I walked in with multiple weapons and not a single person They consider the possibility that could have been a threat. The security at the event is all outside, focused on protesters and current arrivals, because apparently no one thought about what happens if someone checks in the day before. And that's a very good question. That's a very good question. Why did this guy check in the day before and nothing was done about it, especially this person coming in with an armed weapon? Like, this level of competence is insane, he says. And I sincerely hope everyone is corrected by the time that this country gets actually competent leadership again. And then he finishes by saying, you know, like if I was an Iranian agent, and this is where some people are saying it's an Iranian agent, he's not. Instead of an American citizen, I could have bought a blankety Mamdouss in here and no one would have noticed blank. Actually insane. And then, you know, basically he goes on ranting a bit more. So what have we learned from this? Well, you know, it's not a systematic treatise, but what it does tell us is what leftism sees. Leftism sees Trump as a rapist, as a traitor, as someone that's engaged in illicit relations with minors. Now, while we can disprove these things, here's the question. If the tables were turned for a second, how would we react if we had a president who was engaging in those things? We would probably want them out. And so individuals would try to do any type of set action against them. Does that justify it? No, because from a Christian perspective, we're not supposed to engage in insurrections and rise up against people. We're supposed to pray for our enemies and pray for those who persecute us, as opposed to lifting up the sword and engaging in said conflict without an absolute justifiable cause, which are laid out by the principles of war, just war in particular. But all of this being the case, this individual is not engaging in that. This individual is engaging in nonsensical hearsay and echo chamber delusion, and unfortunately decided to go out and to try to assassinate the president. Thank God he didn't, and thank God that he was not successful. Let me know your thoughts, my friends. What's going on here? Let me know. I'd be happy to hear from you guys. Make sure and like this video and subscribe to the show if you're not already a part of it, and share the show with your friends. God bless you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and have a wonderful day.